The only way this fight doesn't happen is if Jake Paul chooses not to fight AJ.
So we really could be getting Anthony Joshua versus Jake Paul next. And this is crazy because... Hello? Billy? I'm talking to the people about this good old boxing talk. What do you need, fella? Are you sure? Are you positive? Good golly. Yeah, breaking news. WBA lightweight 135-pound champion Gervonta Tank Davis is having his return fight. But it's not against Lamont Roach. It's not against Shakur. It's against Jake Paul in an exhibition in Atlanta on November 15th. What the freak is going on?
If I tell you I'm good, probably you will say I'm boasting. But if I tell you I'm no good, you know one line.
Yo, what's good, Boxing Talk family? Welcome back to your favorite boxing news channel, Dr. Boxing Talk, and we are back for another YouTube video. Banger, man. Yes, sir. Yes, man. I don't know what time it is. Doctor's in the house, man. So check this out. But before we do, let's go ahead and smack that like button. Let's do it together. I appreciate you. That helps us to keep going and growing on this YouTube platform. So check this out. We have a major announcement in the boxing world, in the exhibition world, in the sparring world, in the
we're in here talking about practice. I mean, listen, we're talking about practice. Not a game, not a game, not a game. We talking about practice.
You know what I'm talking about? I can go on forever. Anyway, it's between Gervonta Tank Davis, who's a current WBA 135-pound champion, going against serious contender at the cruiserweight division, Jake Paul, right? And it's crazy because this seems like it came out of nowhere, but it really didn't. Because if you remember months ago, I said that this fight is potentially on the horizon, right? And a lot of people said, oh, Doc, you don't know what you're talking about, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, bro, it may not have came from Tank and his team specifically, but there's a lot of talks that go on in the background, preliminary or not, and some things that get announced prematurely to us as the fans. And sometimes they're correct, sometimes they're wrong, sometimes they're rumors or whatever the case may be. But this one, I knew it started to pick up steam because Eddie Hearn said this a minute ago, that Jake Paul and Gervonta Tank Davis could be fighting. And now it's coming to fruition now. So I took a lot of shots from people, and you know who you are. I ain't gonna call you out individually, you know what I'm talking about? Because it ain't that serious. But it's serious enough for me to comment on it. I'm gonna need you to take some accountability. Because if these reports are real, coming from the ring, that Gervonta Tank Davis and Jake Paul will be fighting November 15th, well, I hate to say it, but I told you. You see what I'm saying? And it's just wild because sometimes we think that, oh, well, if it's a PBC fighter, we have to hear from PBC about the news. If it's a Matchroom fighter, we have to hear about Matchroom about the news. If it's a Golden Boy fighter, so on and so forth, right? No, a lot of these promoters, they the ones that hear about these fights first and these fighters because they're in those inner circles. A lot of times, like case in point with Jake Paul, he's talking to Anthony Joshua and he's talking to Gervonta Tank Davis apparently simultaneously. That's how it goes, right? And then you're going to make the best decision for your career. And this is evident because this Eddie Hearn interview just came out literally an hour before the announcement from the ring to say that Gervonta Tank Davis and Jake Paul is fighting. And he said, hey, you know, if the Jake Paul AJ fight doesn't happen, it's because Jake Paul went another direction. And that's exactly what Jake Paul did. He went in the direction of Gervonta Tank Davis. You see what I'm saying? And while you know, there's going to be a lot of people that aren't going to like this fight because they want Gervonta to be fighting Lamont Roach rematch, which ended in a controversial draw, understandable. Or they want him to fight, you know, his rival Shakur Stevenson, you know, who's a WBC 135-pound champion. All that is understandable, right? I want Gervonta Tank Davis to fight real fights too. But the part where I'm not too mad at it is the key word, and that's exhibition. So I do not like this fight for Jake Paul or Gervonta Tank Davis, but at the same time, it is a big revenue generator. They're both cash cows, with Gervonta being one of the top 3 biggest revenue generators in the sport. Of course, it's him, AJ, and then number 1, of course, is Cinnamon, you know, Saul Canelo Alvarez, a face of boxing. So, you know, I can understand it from a monetary value standpoint and a compensation standpoint. But I am going to be honest, you know, I'm a fan of the sport first. I love boxing. So I'm disappointed that Lamont Roach is not getting his opportunity for the draw, you know what I'm saying? And I am disappointed that Tank is not looking to rectify that immediately. You know, that doesn't mean that he can't spin the block and double back and revisit this in the future. That's a possibility as well. But as a person that likes to watch the highest level athletes compete, I am very disappointed that Gervonta Tank Davis is fighting is fighting Jake Paul instead of Lamont Roach, if this does indeed come to fruition. And Lamont Roach has said that he said that he told a lot of people that this was going to happen, that Gervonta Tank Davis was ducking him. You know, and I know a lot of people are going to be mad at Lamont Roach, but you got to understand, from Lamont Roach's position, the only thing he's guilty of is going in there and fighting a good fight. You see what I'm saying? So of course, yeah, Gervonta Tank Davis is a cash cow. He can do whatever he wants. And Lamont Roach is waiting on him, but at the same time, too, you do fight to be the best, and that's what Lamont Roach wants to do. And so I just think it's best for him to just move on with his career, because he shouldn't let anybody hold his career at a standstill. He should control his own destiny, so go fight others. You know, like I said, I really do hope that they get this rematch, because for me personally, I think that it looks bad on Gervonta Tank Davis if he doesn't fight Lamont Roach, because what would be the reason not to fight him? Like I said, I'm not putting a timestamp on it. I'm not saying he has to fight him in this timeline or he has to fight him imminently, but I think he should eventually revisit the Lamont Roach fight, because then it looks like the only reason why you're not fighting Lamont Roach is because he's a dangerous fight. You see what I'm saying? And then that'll go into the narrative that people are kicking about Gervonta Tank Davis cherry picking, you know, and I don't like that at all. So I don't think Lamont Roach was a cherry pick. I thought it was an alternative, because he tried to fight Lomachenko, he tried to fight Rayo, he tried to fight De Los Santos, and those fights fell through. So he went for the fourth option, Lamont Roach. But if you are going to go for a fourth option and he is a champion at the lower division, then it looks bad when you end in a controversial draw and you don't fight him again. So like I said, I'm very disappointed that we're not getting Lamont Roach and Gervonta Tank Davis next. But I do understand, because, hey, this is going to be like a glorified, glamorized sparring session, and you get paid a lot of money for people to watch you essentially spar in an exhibition against Jake Paul, because that's all I think is going to be, then why not go for that? Especially if, you know, if you're Gervonta Tank Davis and he already made it known that he's not really certain about his future in boxing. You know, he has 1 foot out, 1 foot in as far as potentially retiring or potentially continuing on. So if this is something that he wants to do, how could I be mad at somebody controlling their own destiny? But as a fan of the sport, I could voice my disappointment in the fact that we're not getting Gervonta Tank Davis in there with a good, a credible, you know, championship level boxer like a Lamont Roach or Shakur Stevenson. But I know a lot of people are gonna be mad at this, but like I said, just relax a little bit. At least it's an exhibition, and can't be too bad at that. Now, at least for me. Now, I know that a lot of exhibitions are fought where the guys are retired, like Floyd Mayweather, but you got like Pacquiao, who fought exhibitions as well, but then he came back and now he's fighting some real fights. And, you know, even Tyson Fury, let's face it, but against Ngannou, I know it didn't go down as an exhibition, but that was essentially an exhibition. Same way AJ versus Ngannou, that was an exhibition. Floyd versus Conor McGregor, that's essentially an exhibition. You know, it didn't count as such, it counted as professional fights, but we know what time it is. So this is just an exhibition. I'm not too mad at it being an exhibition. Shout out to them getting their money. But as a fan of the sport, which I am always a fan of the sport first, I rock with Gervonta Tank Davis. That's my guy. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not really interested in this fight against Jake Paul at all. But I will be tuning in, because that's just a boxing fan in me. Y'all let me know what y'all think about that. You know, do you think Eddie Hearn is going to be disappointed? I ain't gonna lie. If you ask me right now, even if it was AJ versus Jake Paul, that's still considered an exhibition in my personal opinion. But because they're similar in size and stature, you're closer, you know, with Jake Paul campaigning at cruiserweight, AJ obviously at heavyweight, I'd be more interested in AJ versus Jake Paul, like I said, because AJ, I think he probably would have did him like he did Francis Ngannou. But with Gervonta and Jake Paul, with the size disparity, it's like, I think it's just going to be a glorified televised sparring session. So it's nothing much to really look forward to. But y'all let me know what y'all think about that. You're gonna turn up? Hey, I might turn up there. Hey man, Atlanta, that ain't too far from Florida, you feel me? So November 15th, I might have to see if I pull up, man. Y'all let me know what y'all think about that. Don't forget to smack that like button. And for those of y'all that said that this fight was not even a possibility and people didn't know what they're talking about, I'm gonna need you to eat some humble pie and take some accountability, because even if it doesn't come into fruition, because the ring has been wrong before, I do want to let y'all know that this is indeed a testament to the fact that this fight is definitely discussed heavily. And so that's all it is. You know, fights fall through and come through all the time, you know, but that doesn't mean that these fights aren't talked about. So when you try to go and discredit people for them reporting stuff, and they're doing it just because they love the sport, and you try to make it seem like they're trying to discredit somebody that they're not, then I think you should also hold some accountability and humble yourself and be like, dang, I was wrong and they were right. So yeah, that's just my personal opinion on it. Don't forget to smack that like button, but most importantly, remember, with God, we can do anything. Without God, we're nothing. The doctor's out. Peace. From the hood to college, both worlds they had to meet. 6 degrees between us, so cold we're about to freeze. But we're Florida boys, hot takes, we bring the heat. We're moving the culture, the engineers to the streets.